I mean, I don't think I'll need the whole 7 inches, but it would be nice to know it's there. I mean, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it, is what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that argument.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I guess
it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Oh,
that's
better to die quick fighting on your feet.
How many of these
live forever?
How many of these you think we could do?
Begging on your knees.
Your first one was quite disturbing, though.
Yeah.
Well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement to make.
It takes a long time to get to England in a rowboat.
I don't think it's the same thing.
Similar.
Moving on. We have a new gorilla in the house.
Yeah.
You guys hear it?
Well, I ain't necessarily a silverback, but I'm like one of those little fledgling ones.
He's one of them cute little baby gorillas.
Yeah, I'm like Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. I'm like Diddy Kong right now.
Yeah. So if this is your first episode, you're probably very confused, or maybe not. If you're if you're
don't over explain it, Dane. Just let it happen. Just relax and let it happen.
So we have alluded to the fact that half of the podcasts on this show have been balls deep in AMC stock for a while. And now we can officially say that the entire podcast has a vested interest.
Let's just say that I've
seeing the moonshot.
I've sniffed her neck, and I've at least touched it down there. I might not be balls deep like other members of this podcast, but I am edging my way towards it. Yes, I have finally ventured my gambit into the AMC stock.
That's right.
I will not tell you how much or how many shares I have, but I have officially put forth and I'm trying to coin this phrase, protestment.
Oh, yes. That's the word of the day for episode 42.
And
is protestment.
The definition of what by the way, I workshopped this with the co-host of this podcast this morning. It didn't really hit him with any explanations. He just hit me back straight with a thumbs down. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that right now. I'm going to pretend that we are having this conversation before you sent this thumbs down.
David, let's not get into our personal text history.
Well, I just want to know who the real stick in the mud of this operation is.
I didn't know what you meant.
Exactly. Well, did you bother to find out? No, did you?
I thought you were protesting the
old
earnings.
Woman, man, sorry.
David.
I'm 37.
If I give you an article or a video that talks about the earnings call and you use the word protestment, that sounds to me like you're not happy about the earnings call. You probably just quick read
it and said Protestant.
No. I read it as protesting the earnings call, and it's like, why are you mad, bro? Did you not watch the video? It was a good earnings call.
I would never do that. Anywho, moving on. Protestment is a combination of a protest and investment. You may have, if you're one of the more learned listeners, you may have already deduced that particular.
You might have just added to the whole
lexicon?
Reddit Wall Street bets. Yeah,
lexicon.
Yeah, you might add a word to the Wall Street bets dictionary, baby.
In any way I can.
We got plenty of protestments because we just like the
basically stock. My co-host over here has been so surly for the past couple of months about this whole predicament.
They're cheating. We said it on was it the last podcast episode or the one before?
I'm sure we've said it on multiple podcasts. We brought it up multiple times.
These sons of bitches cheating is what's going to bring the whole thing down.
Right.
It'll be their fault. Well, not ours. We just played the rules. We played the game by their rules and beat them at it. And
in fairness, I was a latecomer and I wasn't one of the forerunners. So I don't ever anticipate being a general in this particular movement. However, if I could just be a SOCOM or a spec op in this particular one, I feel like we could do some magical things. Anyway, I just couldn't.
I will say, with your size load, you are
you're gonna softball that one in like that with the 7 inches.
You are nimble and light enough to be a spec operator. Okay, you're not bringing in the heavies.
Bitch, I will come at you so hard.
But you know what? Every gorilla counts. And we're glad to have you in the 8.
Oh, you're referring to my... Okay. I thought you were talking about my general demeanor, not the amount that I...
Every 8 counts.
Okay, so I'm still sniffing the neck.
You are still going to have enough room to build a house.
I haven't heard the soft no yet, so I'm still working the strings. Anyway.
Believe it or not, this topic is actually going to make an appearance in the episode too.
So anyway, I kind of wanted to get into it, but I didn't want to also get caught up in like the, the hype and so on and so forth. So I'd waited this long, and then I finally saw what it's boiled down to: whether or not the hedge funds will let their son get sacrificed for the greater good, or option B, pull some shit that they've been known to pull before and totally devalue the market, but they'll totally prop it up as that they did it for the justified reasons because they have all the media, they have all the backing, they have all this, that, and the other. So I said, listen, if you guys are going to go down, I'm going to go down with you, at least in some small portion. So I wanted to throw my hat into the ring and become one of the members of the guerrilla gang, if whatever the hell you want to call it, Reddit
You
stomp.
purchased your ticket to the movie.
I bought a ticket. I'm not front row, but I will be somewhere on that roller coaster.
We're picking you up.
All right.
All right. So with that being said, we're going to jump in. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 42. Can be found at wmdpodcast.com/42. You'll be able to get it on YouTube and any podcast catcher that you listen to podcasts on. You will also be able to find us, connect with us, jump in the comments, send us funny stuff to post and talk about. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
Give us a reason for being.
I think that's it.
Give us
Twitter.
A reason.
We're on Twitter.
Give us a
Twitter?
Yeah, I think you did. We're on all of them. Just look us up.
Look us up. Just Google Weapons of Meme Destruction, and you'll be able to find us because whoever's doing our SEO is dominating. So anyway, here's what we're talking about today. We're talking about
Batman.
Yes. Also yes.
I could not hold back my excitement. I almost got my Bane mask out to speak, like to switch characters in between Joker, Bane.
You can still do it. Just cover your mouth and pretend like the mask.
How dare you? You want me to assume a character and not have the full garb on? I'm insulted.
Anyway, yes, David's not kidding.
I'm
he
enraged.
Actually does own a Bane mask.
Shocking.
Anywho, the topic of today is the general existential crisis that the United States and, not just the United States, but that's where our focus of today is going to be. The general existential crisis that is currently ongoing and the gathering storm clouds hanging over America and where that can possibly go.
Storm's coming.
We're going to discuss a book that was written back in 1997 that had some interesting predictions on something like this happening around this time. Tie it in with some cultural references and then leave you off on a happy note about how the world can be better.
Some might say a happy ending, perhaps.
One might say. So, the book we're referring to in this book will actually be linked on the show notes page of this episode at wmdpodcast.com/42. So if you want to pick up the book, go through that link because you help the show out if you do. It's called The Fourth Turning, and it was written by two guys, one named Neil Howe and William Strauss. And they had an interesting theory that history is basically cyclical, and the cycles last about 80 years or a person's lifetime. And within that 80 years, there's 4 different groups and every 20 years. And there's general archetypes to these groups, but the point is that they use historical examples to say that the last 80 years before now was World War II. 80 years before that was the Civil War, and 80 years before that was the Revolutionary War.
Well, to kind of surmise it, it falls right in line with a phrase that we always say too: is hard times make hard men make easy times make soft men make easy times. So that's
soft men make hard times.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
thank you.
They were completing the loop as you were saying.
I rushed through my script, but
I don't want to throw a wrench because that whole thing was not in their book.
Right, I'm sure, but it correlates perfectly with it.
Yes. So generally, the last kind of, because there's 4 archetypes. There's prophets, nomads, heroes, and artists. And so the last prophet generation is the boomers. And we are currently sitting in the most recent iteration of the hero generation as millennials. And at the end of...
It's not who we are underneath. It's what we do that defines us.
He's so happy about getting to talk about Batman.
So
He's
happy.
just jumping
Wait.
up in the episode.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to hold
anyway,
it. I'm gonna try to hold it back as much as I
Jesus
can.
Christ, man. Can
Please.
I get through the book?
Maybe.
Please. All right. So about every 80 years, there is the 4th turning takes place, and you basically have a clash between the hero generation and the prophet generation to see about which direction the world is going to go. And based on the lived experiences of those generations, they have very different views of the world. And sometimes it can come to violence. Obviously, the 3 examples that were just given, World War II, Civil War, and Revolutionary War were all violent, but they need not always be that way. And we want to perhaps provide that light by the end of this episode and show you that we don't want it to go in the violent way, but you're going to have to swallow some hard pills in order for that not to happen.
Maybe both of
Jagged pills, whatever.
Maybe both of our mothers' names are Martha too.
So, I don't know what he's talking about, so we're skipping right over that.
Oh,
well, Batman's mother's Martha. Who else's mother's Martha?
Superman. Batman and Superman. There's the whole fulcrum of why Batman and Superman got together in that stupid movie.
Okay.
I was making a reference to a shitty Batman movie.
Well, David, we are finally to that part of the show where we can talk about Batman. Are you ready?
Hold on. All right, I'm good. Go.
Okay,
Please.
let me lead it in. So, let's use Batman as kind of an example to explain this thesis that Strauss and Howe came up with, and how different generations interact with each other to, kind of change the course of history. So the boomers, think of the Batman that they grew up with.
Adam West. No offense. I mean, it was satirical, but good God.
Right. Okay. That Batman was, follow the rules, kind of, worked very hand in hand with the police, and everybody was above board, and the mayor was a good guy. The policeman was a good guy. Batman walked grannies across the street, kind of trust the institutions, do the right things, and the good guy will always win.
They all shook hands at the end of every episode, like, good job, Batman. You're, addition to society. You're so great. Thanks for catching the Joker for the 1,000th time, says the mayor and Gordon and everybody, and everyone claps and cheers and yada, 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 yada.
Yeah. It's a very, to use the archetype thing, it's a very highly, highly trustworthy outlook of the world where you trust your institutions. Your government, your good guys, right? Your police, those are the ones that you can look to keep you safe and do the right thing.
If you're a good actor, the government, the institutions have your back.
Yes. And the reason why the world...
Despite you being a vigilante and taking matters into your own hands.
Yeah. The reason why everything is right with the world is because we trusted the institution and they did the right thing. And when you think about it, when they were kids watching that version of Batman, they had just come out of World War II, where the good guys teamed together to defeat the ultimate evil. And now we are peace and prosperity in the United States because we're pretty much the lone superpower and everything's perfectly fine. The institutions came through and did their thing. And so you can understand why, as a generation, that kind of narrative, that storytelling would resonate with them, and it was reflected in their culture. Batman is the storyline that we're using to kind of illustrate this point. Now, let's fast forward to the hero generation, the millennials, and let's talk about the Batman that we grew up on.
By the way, if you're our age,
in your wheelhouse.
Congratulations for being a member of the hero generation. Good God.
Don't get too proud of yourself, folks. It's just the name of an archetype. Doesn't mean we're all awesome.
Don't listen to the shit talker of this particular podcast. Just listen to your sultry sultan over here, and purveyor of truth, knowledge, and the eventual conventional cheese, and you're a hero. Anyway.
So, David, the Batman we grew up on.
The Batman we grew up on. Well, first of all, we came kind of in the latter stages of the kind of Adam Westy kind of bullshit thing. And then he kind of fell by the wayside for a little bit. We had the animated series with Mark Hamill, i.e. the Luke Skywalker being one of the most prolific Jokers, voicing the Joker for, a decade. And it was a darker. Even the animated series was a little bit darker. But now, ever since 2004, I think Batman Begins, the Christian Bale episodes and so on and so forth, it got a little darker. It got a little more realistic. It got a little more, I don't think the institutions really give a shit whether I live or die kind of thing. So I'm going to take matters into my own hands, which explains why Batman would even become Batman in the first place. If everything was all hunky-dory and the institutions had everything all wrapped up, why do they need Batman? They just need a super cop. Become a cop. Go stop the Joker being a crazy asshole trying to melt the polar ice caps to flood the world, and just go arrest him. Because it didn't seem that much. But when you see that the institutions that were supposed to stop the criminals are actually aiding and abetting the criminals because the criminals wisened up and are using them against you, that's the Batman that we grew up on.
Yeah. And I think where some people go wrong, in my humble opinion, is they put too much credit to culture as kind of a controlled thing that's dictated to the people and that shapes the people's mind, than they do. It's a two-way street between a particular generation and the culture. So here's what I mean by that. A lot of people will say, especially older people, so like older than millennials, I should say, so X's, boomers, stuff like that. They'll say, oh, well, the reason why kids are so bad these days, or the reason why, there's so much gun violence, school shootings, stuff like that, is because these kids were raised on a gun is the solution to every problem, shoot them up kind of stuff. Basically the culture itself dictated what we ultimately became. And what I would like to posit to that is that it's a two-way street. Yes, the culture is selling things to us that we want to buy, but if it doesn't resonate with us, we aren't going to buy it. If the boomer version of Batman was being sold today, we're not buying it. We buy the darker Batman because the things that we've seen throughout our lived experience so far has been darker.
And the posit that I was going to make there is in the Batman Begins. First, Bruce went away to college and then came back with the idea that he was just going to shoot the guy that killed his dad. And the only reason that he didn't is because somebody did it before him. And then he shows Rachel the fact that he was about to do that. And she says, you're a coward, you're dumb, you're stupid. If you really want to confront evil, go in and talk to the guy that just had your boy whacked. And then thus begins his process. That being said, to come back to that, I would call it a misguided notion. We live in the best time, in the most peaceful time in this country that there's ever been. The gun violence is at an all-time low, despite what you may or may not hear on on social and actual media. This is the best time to be alive ever. And and if you need any facts to back it up, the simple fact that everyone has time to complain about how bad this time is proves that it is truly the best time to be alive. If it was truly horrific to live, you wouldn't have time to complain about it. You'd still be running for your life.
Yes. And I think that, we've referenced this several times on the podcast, the cathedral, right? So that kind of cabal that speaks from one script that is comprised of the powerful in DC, the powerful in Hollywood, the powerful in multinational corporations, like the power center is all in agreement to push us in one direction, be afraid, trust the institutions, right? And I posit to you that that's not purely a coincidence. The fact that the cathedral speaks with one voice to say, trust the institutions. Think about COVID. Everything that comes out of the CDC or from Dr. Fauci or the World Health Organization is gospel truth. Trust your institutions. What I'm suggesting to you is that we are in the death throes of that mentality that colors the boomers' worldview, is have faith in your institutions, trust your institutions. And why would that be the case for them today? They're the ones that are running all of them. They're running it all. And grew up believing that the institutions could do X, Y, or Z. And so when they got in the institutions, they tried to do everything from A to Z. And along the way, screwed everything up because that's what centralization of power has always done. And now we have really screwed up institutions to the point that our admittedly darker generation doesn't trust them. And it comes out in our cultural references. That's why Batman is darker. Yes, they're playing to us, but we consume it because that's the world we've always ever seen, is a world of trustless, faithless institutions.
Because evil in its truest form doesn't attack straight on like they do in Batman. Evil in its truest form tries to make it so that you don't even know it's there. You don't even know what it's doing before you can stop it, because that's the whole point, is that it doesn't want you to know that it's doing it. It doesn't want you to know it's doing it, because then you might stand up and stop it. That's the whole point of Batman. It's like he's the guy that knows the things that we don't, so he can go behind in the dark alleyways and stop it to save us from the thing that we don't, from the force that we don't see behind us. But unfortunately, we live in reality, and Batman doesn't exist yet, to our knowledge. Maybe he's out there, and if he is,
come stop by David's house and sign some autographs.
Give your boy a call. I'd gladly be your Robin. Eventually, I want to be Red Hood because he's a little more cool than Nightwing. Anywho, not the point. The point is that that's the narrative that we'd like to see, that we are on the inside of the outside, and that we can stop the nefarious thing happening beforehand. But with the world that we live in now, we just see the ramifications of what we believed to be good, and then it actually turns out to be turning on us in the end.
And so to kind of tie that whole thing together about the lack of trust in the institutions and the fourth Turning book is, as I said, it was written in 97, and they predicted that there would be a crisis period that would start around 2005, culminate in 2020, and then by 2026, whatever the shakeout was for whether the world was going to change or whether the world was going to stay the same, would happen by about 2026. Now, you might be thinking, well, what happened? Were these guys right? And they weren't far off. So instead of 2005, we had the financial crisis in 2008. We have coronavirus and everything going on with the market, and AMC is going to become relevant here in 2020. And then all throughout that crisis period, what we've learned as we come to power, as millennials start to displace the boomers and have the positions of control over the direction of society, we have our distrust of institutions could go in one of two directions. And we would like to posit to you direction B, because I better make sure I don't mix those up later and tell them to do the wrong one. But B is the one that we want them to take. So we gotta remember which one B is.
Swear to me.
So think about what our generation saw, right? We were coming of age in 2008. We saw our parents do everything right, invest in their 401k, be on the verge of retirement. You know, they did everything they were supposed to do. And in 2008, their 401ks get wiped out.
By the way,
they get foreclosed on.
By their fellow generation.
Yeah. Now, their chances, everything that they did to plan for 30, 40, 50 years of their working life to get ready for retirement is now wiped out to a substantial enough extent for many that retirement is off the table for them. It just ain't going to happen. They now need to work until they die. And that happened to our parents. And what did we see happen? We saw the perpetrators of it get bailed out. We saw the politicians who used that crisis instead of actually doing something positive, used it to collect more power to themselves. Fast forward 12 years, we're here again in 2020.
And all the while convincing you that the people that put you in the situation that crumbled your life were too big to fail. We couldn't let them fail. Even though they lied to you the entire time and created the perfect scenario for you to lose everything that you'd spent your entire life trying to work for, they can't be held responsible.
So what did the generation that trusts institutions do with too big to fails? they used institutions to make them bigger and more susceptible to failure.
And fast forward 2008, you said, and it's 2021.
Yeah.
Carry the 2. 11 years later?
Yeah.
11 years later. Okay, we're right back where we started. Now we've got to fast forward to the current day. Now we've got one of these guys cornered. We've literally got these
Yes, this is the AMC reference.
These mal players within the game that are holding down the little man and giving some pittance out. So yeah, you might be able to retire comfortably. That's cool. Now we finally got their feet to the fire. We caught one of these perpetrators and we're closing in on him. And granted, he can be sucked up, but Dane, would you like to explain this particular predicament that we're in, or would you like me to? Okay, so I'll go. This is the opening scene of a Batman movie. Okay, so Batman's closing in on the Joker for the first time. He's finally met him. Anyway, so he's about to get him, and then all of a sudden the Joker slips away because of some, unforeseen trap that was sprung on Batman. This is the first scene that we've had. Like, we're closing in on the guy that we always wanted to close in on, and all it needs is natural the course of action to take place. But how many times have we seen that trap be sprung on you by the institutions that were supposed to keep those traps from being sprung on you?
So David buried the lead a lot there, but what he's referring to is the AMC situations, the situation, and other stocks like GameStop and stuff, and the hedge funds getting themselves into trouble by cheating the rules to the system. And for a more in-depth conversation about that, check out episode 39 at wmdpodcast.com/39. And we talk about how the hedge funds cheating are the number one argument that people that want power, socialists and communists, point to say, see, that's the free market failing, and that's why we need more control. By cheating, right, they are literally doing the opposite of a free market. They are stopping it from functioning, because if they made a bad bet, then all of the money that they've been making for all these years for making good bets gets redistributed to the people they made a bad bet to. And that's what the Guerrilla Gang has done. They have caught them with their pants down. They've caught them cheating and played the rules by their game, and now have them trapped that if the market were truly allowed to work, you would see the most massive wealth redistribution action in all of recorded history. You would see hedge funds with billions and billions of dollars based on the market alone, no regulation, if it was allowed to work.
If this was a Batman movie.
Yes, that money would be dispersed across millions of AMC shareholders that have caught the hedge funds with their pants down. And just imagine, Dave, you don't have to imagine. Here's some of the interesting things that these individuals who got rich off GameStop, what they're doing with their money. Because gorillas are kind of the mascot, a bunch of them donated to the Diana Fossey Gorilla Fund, which is basically an African nonprofit that helps gorillas. It's a gorilla sanctuary. And some people are like, that's funny. Wouldn't this be funny if we donate some of our earnings to that? But that's taken on a life of its own, to the point that people are doing socially beneficial things with their money. They're not just sitting on it.
And what does Elon Musk, our generation's Tony Stark, say?
What?
History favors irony. Wouldn't it be ironic that the company that was supposed to go broke gets picked up by a bunch of, what do they call themselves?
Gorillas.
Gets picked up by a bunch of gorillas.
Strong.
And I can only imagine that that's a harken back to Harambe, aka dicks out for Harambe, a bunch of idiots that pulled their dicks out for a gorilla that did the right thing to protect a kid and got killed for it. We come in and try to protect a business, in all honesty, that should never have made it through COVID. We come in and we sweep in to save this corporation, and that's a nod. You can't tell me that's not a nod to us donating to that Fossey charity.
Yeah, when AMC, so
it's a wink.
So originally,
it's an Easter egg is what we'd call
originally, people that won on GameStop did it, And then AMC and Adam Aron, their CEO, was paying attention. And then after their earnings call this week, he announced on the earning call that AMC and himself individually, so for a collective of $100,000, $50K each, donated to this Diana Fossey Gorilla Fund. And so this is a beautiful example of the market at work. When you hear libertarians talk about the market works, and they get mocked and dragged all the time like we have some, religious type faith in the market. We don't. What we're saying is that human beings left to their own devices, acting in their own self-interest, if channeled properly in terms of giving them incentive to make profit and things like that, good things can happen. And in an effort for AMC and Adam Aron to say, hey, thanks, apes, we see you, and we're going to send a signal to you that we're on your side, what happens? Some gorillas get helped out. That is a socially good thing. I don't think anybody's going to get upset about, but that's something that nobody was forced to do, and it happened.
And to hark it back for the first time in Weapons of Meme Destruction history, by the way, to our pre-roll banter that actually pertained to our post-roll banter. That's the whole reason
we're getting good at this.
I mean, we're getting decent. That's the whole reason that I invested in the first place. Like I know if I invested into a stock portfolio that was responsible, that it was the right thing to do, and it'll help set up my 401k for retirement, I know for a fact that the day that I signed up for that and went into the market would crash immediately. And I've always had that belief. I've always felt like the black sheep when I'm ever investing in something that I thought could make me money. That being said, the whole thing that I got pulled into this whole shenanigans with the gorillas and the hedgies and AMC and all this, is because it was for a cause. And finally, it was for something that I believed in. I didn't invest in AMC because I think that AMC is a great company that has a chance to come out of this and come out of this stronger. I invested in it because it's finally the little man standing up to the big man saying, make your move. Either come out that you're a fraud or come out that you're for open market. And I believe there's enough goodwill amongst us to push it forward.
Okay, but in addition to that, which is all very nice.
Go for it.
In addition to that, you also stand to make some serious coin if this thing goes where it's supposed to go.
Sure. Why not? Why not?
Right. And why? And
because I believe in my fellow man. Because I believe in humanity.
And
go for it.
Even if that's all it was, even without all of the things that you care about, because yes, there are some people that just bought the stock and just want to make some money.
Right, sure.
And the point that we're trying to make is, you can say, oh, well, that's greed. And we say all the time, human beings are rationally self-interested. So you wanting to make money is a rational, self-interested thing to do. It doesn't need to have flowery reasons behind it. But what is happening? Where are they getting the money from? Right? They're not getting the money from taxpayers. There's no free handout. They took a risk buying the stock. They're getting the money from people who have been cheating for a very, very long time and are currently actively cheating now. So,
and by the way, just to caveat that, will also walk out on TV and say they're fighting for your rights and fighting to make your life better. Walk back behind that door and help them back out. Go ahead.
Yes. So that money is being, again, like I said, it would be the largest wealth redistribution single event in all of human history. For everybody that wants to say we need to force redistribution, we need to give the money to the government and the government will divvy it out evenly to everybody. Don't make me laugh. But this is, in the abstract, wealth redistribution from people that have cheated and lied and stole for so long to a bunch of individuals. Just in the abstract, I think everybody can agree that is, whether you want to call it cosmic justice or whatever, because it's not a top-down approach. It's the market distributing justice. Who could be mad at that outcome? Other than them themselves.
all that I'll say in this, to try to wrap this up so we can go back to Batman, because God knows that's my wheelhouse. This is the quintessential checkmate in the free market. If that's what you're calling it, this hedge fund, and we won't bring up who it is, this hedge fund is checkmated right now. It's checkmated. You can't move legally unless you change the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you change the rules of the game, now you're admitting that the game's not fair. And what does that indicate for the game?
You're not just you're admitting it's not fair. You are admitting everything that our generation has thought about institutions because it's all we've ever seen.
And you're creating a generation of Batmans.
So in 2008, when we were too young to trust the institutions, but we saw our parents do it, and as they were stolen from in broad daylight, they looked at the SEC and they looked at the Treasury Secretary and they looked at the government in general and said, oh, please protect us, institutions, protect us. And those institutions made the too bigs to fail bigger and more susceptible to failure, bailed them out with money that came from the stolen's pockets, and still didn't get anywhere with it.
And figuratively murdered your parents in front of you when you were 8.
And so fast
2008! 2008! He was 8 when they were murdered, and it's 2008. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just trying to draw lines. Trying to draw lines.
So, and fast forward to 2020, now it's our money. It's not our parents' money. Now it's our money on the line. And we're saying, hey, we caught these guys making bad bets. Let's go. Let's play the game by their rules. We can buy stock. We can hold stock. We can sell stock when it goes higher. There's nothing cheating about that. So we play the rules, or we play the game by their rules. They get caught with their pants down. They cheat again. And they think that we, like our parents' generation,
our predecessors,
that we are just going to lay down and take it. And I posit to you that we probably won't.
Not saying that we're eliciting violence, because God knows.
Actually, violence gets into Strauss and Howe's prediction, and where we want to leave this episode off to say it doesn't have to go that way.
Right. So, we don't have to don a cape and cowl. We don't have to come up with our own sweet-ass symbol. We don't have to buy an automobile that is named after the symbol that we put on our chest. Well, what can we do, Dane, to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
I mean, before it gets there, the institutions right now have a choice. They can either say, listen, we got to take this one on the chin, because if we don't, any semblance of confidence in the institutions, and that includes us and our political masters, is going to be completely destroyed forever for this generation. Right.
Or see the end of the tune.
So,
period.
Now, guess which option they're going to choose. Right? They're probably going to cheat again, and then that's when things pop off. But how they pop off is going to be a choice that we as a generation have to make. We didn't build these institutions. We currently don't staff these institutions. But these institutions keep doing the same thing, but we are now coming into our own of power to be able to do something about it.
But you know what this generation is capable of thinking, though, is that we realize we are not adhesed to these institutions. The only thing that give these institutions power is the fact that we give them the power. The fact that we live under their rule, the fact that we substantiate all their claims. I was told just this week when we were having a conversation about vaccines with one of my friends, that I'm going to be the reason, because I'm hesitant to get a vaccine because of all the anecdotal evidence of the people that I know. I'm hesitant to get it. I was explaining that to them, and they said that I'm going to be the reason why we go under, me and people like me are going to be the reason that we go under a second lockdown. To it, I say, no. You're the reason that we're going to go under a secondary lockdown, because you will allow them to tell you that you are going under a secondary lockdown.
And do you know why they even have that argument to make to you in the
Because
first
they
place?
still believe in the fucking...
They believe in the institutions, but the institution, the cathedral, right, has told them, they are conditioning them to think that freedom is selfishness.
Correct.
That if you make any argument premised on, I think freedom is a morally just end in and of itself, and that we should try to expand freedom to as many people as possible. If you make an argument based on that, again, if the cathedral gets its way, you are viewed with suspicion and that you're a selfish, bad person. You need to you need to bend the knee to the cathedral, and you need to do as we say, because if you make any sort of argument based on freedom or whatever, you are a nuisance to be dealt with. And again, a generation that has respect for institutions might succumb to that. I'm not saying that 90% of the people don't think that freedom is a nuisance and you're a bad person. There might only be 10% of us out here, but that 10% of us is strong. Only 3% of the American colonists actually picked up guns and shot back at the crown. The other 97% were either pro-crown or they were like, listen, y'all are going crazy over there with this revolution stuff. Just leave me out of it. A very, very dedicated minority people that are motivated by something like freedom.
This sounds like rebel rousing, but at the same time, we're not saying this is violence. We're not eliciting violence. What we're saying is that you don't have to succumb to peer pressure. If I remember correctly, when we were in high school, there was a thing called DARE that told us not to succumb to peer pressure, not to smoke pot because all of our other friends told us that it was the cool thing.
Cathedral.
Yeah, you stupid sons of bitches. Maybe think about what you tell us when we're kids and then we grow up and have it burned into our skull. Like, this is peer pressure. You telling me that I have to get a vaccine for you to feel safe? That's otherwise known as peer pressure. By the way, if you believe the science that that was force-fed into your mouth, then you should be 95% sure that you're not even going to catch it from me. And even if you do catch it from me, it should be a mild case and you'll never die ever. So what are you afraid of? Variants? So then all of a sudden your supercomputer that you believe in can create another fucking booster shot and now you're fine in another couple of months. But to blame me for a shutdown from your own weakness, doesn't that say more about you? Doesn't that say more about our victimship? Again, we admire Batman because he's a hero. No one ever writes stories about the victim, but what do we always do in the society nowadays? We admonish the offender and we lift up the victim. Like, that's not how society works. And I can guarantee you that's not how nature works. You're supposed to adhere to the hero because you are supposed to be your own hero. You're supposed to be your own Batman. Make your own decisions. Define your own justice and live by it. Be your own person. Critically think. Think for yourself. Think, is this right? Do I want this? Or is this what other people want for me? Be your own Batman, guys.
And so, we don't bring up, the example of it just so happens that 80 years ago was World War II, and 80 years before that was the Civil War, and 80 years before that was the Revolutionary War. So, we don't pick that historical example for its lessons on violence per se, because again, Strauss and Howe predict for culminating in about 2020 and leading out to 2026 is that this can go in basically one of three directions, right? We can either have civil unrest that could devolve into a civil war. We could have the country break apart, or we could descend into authoritarianism. Now, listen, I don't know if Strauss and Howe are right. I don't know. Maybe there's a fourth option that they didn't account for. But I'm saying if those are our three options, and we've made this point on the podcast several times before, the most humane thing to do when you cannot stand the sight of each other is to divorce. That's what happened. It's called irreconcilable differences. And half of the people in this country absolutely hate the other half. They think they're evil and that everything they stand for is like tantamount to Satanism. just let them break apart into as many little pieces as they want. That is sure the hell of a lot better and a lot more humane and non-violent solution than is civil unrest, which could devolve into a civil war and or revolution. Or authoritarianism. We're asking to take the reasonable, rational route towards peace and nonviolence, not the two violent routes that lay before us.
So what you're saying, Dade, is that it doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
That's all I want to say.
That's all you want to say and how you wanted to say it, right?
Well, it's again, we don't want to crash the plane.
Yeah.
We just want
because we're on it too.
Dipshits. Like
when they tell you to be walking outside of my house, staying frosty until I get to my armored vehicle just so I can go to work. I don't want that.
And drive on the right side of the lane and signal every time because I don't want to get reported to the other people. But our point is that be your own person. Everyone will respect that. But when you cater to the masses, you have to have absolute adherence to it or else you will get cast out. So make your choice. Make your choice. Do you want to be one of the sheep or do you want to critically think? And we're not saying that getting a vaccine or any of these other things that you have for your own health's sake makes you a sheep or makes you a wolf. That's not what I'm saying.
Make your own decision.
Exactly.
Is what we're saying.
Exactly. Be your fucking own Batman. I don't know how else to say it. Determine your justice and elicit your justice into the world. We are on your side.
And, David, you brought up a point, and on the individual level, everybody is going to have to make a choice. On a whole myriad of decisions, both micro and macro, they're going to have to make a choice. But there's other groups that have choices to make too. Institutions. The boomers running them. You have a choice to make. You have royally screwed up the system in a number of ways and cheated all along the way to do it. And we have the outlook on the world we do because of it. But you can still choose to say, all right, we have to salvage some sort of faith, or it could get dark. And so we're going to bite the bullet and take our beating on this one.
By the way,
we screwed up. We made some bad bets. Or you can continue to lie and cheat and destroy any thread of faith in you or any of your institutions that there was. I posit there wasn't that much anyway. You have that choice to make. And then us as a generation, millennials and Zs, we have a choice to make too. Because remember, authoritarianism is on that list too. And there are people out there that want to take power to impose their views on the world. The AOCs, the Bernie Sanders, the, Captain Executive Order in the White House now. They want to take control, put it back in those institutions, provided they are the ones in control of those institutions, because they're good-natured and moral and everything they do would be right. But we don't have to go that route. The other choice that we can take is the decentralized choice of saying, live and let live. I don't have to live under the same political structures as you. I'm going to do my thing. You do your thing. Let's trade peacefully instead of shoot at each other.
Because as you know, every hero can live long enough to become a villain. And those are just these same auspices that create the Joker. What did the Joker say? I can tell you that 1,000 soldiers will get blown up tomorrow. Nobody bats an eye. But I say one little broom there will die. And everyone loses their minds. Because it's all part of the plan. The part of the plan is people die more from heart disease. People die more from cancer than this thing that we're fighting over now. Period. Let's get back to order. Let's get back to chaos. That's all I'm saying. Let's let
I like it. We got to let them marinate on that a little bit.
Let them marinate.
So, Where can you find this episode? You can find it at wmdpodcast.com/42. You can find it on YouTube. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. More coming at your face probably soon. Definitely come over to the website, though. Go to the Support Our Work tab. Look at the ways that you can help the show. If you like what we do and you want to help us out, you can either go shop at Amazon through our link and give us some commissions. You can give us monthly donations for which you get extra goodies. Or pretty soon, there will be merchandise available. And you'll be able to buy a shirt with not our pretty faces because they're pretty ugly, but the logos, those look good.
What happens Wednesdays, by the way, at 7?
Yes, almost forgot that too. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Stereo app, which you can find in the Google Play Store, Apple iTunes Store, whatever. The Stereo app, we do a live show every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's on a topic of the day. Could be something that we just read that day or 24 to 48 hours before. And we engage with our listeners on there because you can give little voice notes that we play on the show and then respond to. So if you want to have closer contact with us and also get some extra content for no monies, check us out on the Stereo app on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. David, did I hit everything? Have I sufficiently sold out to the man for the deep red that this podcast is in, even deeper than our AMC position?
It's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
And we definitely want you to send that message by helping us spread ours.
Please do it.